Welcome back. Now it's time for what's trending in true crime. Six-time Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius has been granted parole. This comes a decade after he killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. On Friday, the double amputee Olympic runner was granted parole and now is set to be released from a South African prison in January. In 2016, Pistorius was sentenced to 13 years and 5 months for the murder of Riva Steenkamp at his home. He shot her in his bathroom, claimed it was an intruder, shot her 4 times through the door after he claimed that he thought somebody broke into his home. Now, he was initially convicted of culpable homicide in 2014. It was overturned on appeal, and he was convicted of murder in 2015. And serious offenders in South Africa have to serve at least half of their sentence in order to have a chance at parole, which Pistorius has done. But does it seem like justice for Riva Steenkamp? Let's bring in our power panel. I have with us criminal defense attorney Marcia Minot. She's also been a former prosecutor. I also have with me former criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi, who famously represented Jodi Arias, and jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine. Wonderful to see you all. Welcome to the program this morning. So Marcia Minot, so glad to see you. You've been so busy in trial lately, my friend. I was delighted to see your face a moment ago. So tell me, I want you to start us off. What do you think? You've been a prosecutor and you're a practicing criminal defense attorney now in the private sector. Is this justice for Riva Steenkamp's family?
Well, justice is based on the law. What does the law say? If the law says that this defendant is permitted to come out on parole, the parole board needs to look at his conduct while he was in custody, because custody is what determines if the person has been rehabilitated. I don't think the family will consider it justice because they've lost their loved ones forever and they will never get their loved one back. So as it pertains to the family's determination or definition of justice, this is probably not it.
Right, Marcia. Susan Constantine, let me go to you next. Your thoughts, please.
Yes, so I'm going to agree with what she's talking about. So I'm going to speak on the behalf of the family. And when you think about 10 years, and that's it, this family won't see her for the rest of her life. So does that really seem like justice to me? To me, it doesn't, because I try to put myself in that family's position. And 10 years, this guy's been able to outrun, no pun intended, these charges. Just 10 years, that's all he's going to serve. I don't know. I have a hard time with that one because I feel like that this was a permanent decision that he made that has permanent results in other people's lives. So I don't agree. I think it should stay in there and serve time and also give this family some justification for what he has done.
I'm with you, Susan. I say lock him up, throw away the key after what he did. Kirk Nurmi, your thoughts. Last but not least, want to hear from you, please.
Yeah, I think justice is a concept that's a little more expansive than what the law allows for here. And obviously we're dealing with South Africa, a different justice system, but I tend to believe it should be universal that if someone makes the choice, that conscious choice to take a life, that theirs should be taken away, not in terms of death penalty, but in terms of freedom and everything else. To me, that means that everybody who's convicted of a first-degree murder should spend their life behind bars with very few amenities. So as you said, lock the door and throw away the key kind of attitude towards it, because they made that choice and then they made the choice to live the way they did. So to me, someone should not walk out of prison after having killed someone. They should go out in a pine box, as it were.
I'm with you, my friend. Switching gears now, we have another really big case I want to ask you three about, please. This involves Hulk Hogan's son. Okay, we brought you the news about his recent DUI arrest, right? Well, now the family of his former friend is speaking out, because remember, he had issues in the past. So Nick Hogan, Nick Balea is his actual name, was arrested recently in Clearwater, Florida on suspicion of DUI. This is right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Now, his father, Hulk Hogan, apparently was with him at a restaurant just an hour before he was arrested. And this is the second time Nick Balea has been arrested in a case involving alcohol, according to police. Back in 2007, he crashed into a palm tree, seriously injuring his then friend John Graziano. Now, his friend became paralyzed for the rest of his life, needs care around the clock for the rest of his life after that crash caused by Nick Balea. Now, John Graziano's mother is speaking out, telling TMZ that Balea's recent arrest shows a, quote, total lack of respect for what happened to her son. When he was 17, he pleaded to a reckless driving, did 8 months in jail, got 5 years probation. And now this is technically his first DUI because he doesn't have a prior DUI on his record. That was a reckless on his record before. And so thinking about this from the family's perspective, just as Susan Constantine was saying in the Oscar Pistorius case, let's think about it here with John Graziano's family, what they're thinking after these recent allegations. Let me bring back in my guest, Susan. Let me start with you on that point. We know they're just allegations. We know he hasn't been convicted, but if you are that family, what might you be thinking right now?
Well, I think reckless behavior, begets reckless behavior. So in watching the trajectory of his life, right, we can see things starting to build. And in every person, when there's been these violent acts or reckless behavior, you're going to see a pattern. It is this patterned behavior. And if it doesn't get stopped, they don't do something, then something even more horrific. If it isn't already horrific as it is that poor gentleman in that wheelchair and he's paralyzed. I mean, I just, to me, it nauseates me. It sickens me to the end of my core. And I think that this guy needs to be stopped and he needs to grow up and they need to give him some pretty strict punishment for his behavior because otherwise he's going to kill someone next time.
You're right, Susan. You're right. This needs to be taken seriously. He does need to grow up. I mean, when you think about the resources he has, in this day and age, there's no excuse for anybody to drive drunk. Uber, Lyft, everywhere you go, taxis. I mean, his dad has so much money, he could potentially have a private driver arranged to make sure he gets home safely and isn't on the road. It is very, very upsetting. Kirk Nurmi, something I used to think about when I was a prosecutor, I'd look at people with multiple instances of DUI, and I would think, gosh, these are just the times that they're getting caught. I wonder, what about the other times where they may be driving under the influence and not being picked up? Would you speak to that, please, Kirk?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no way to calculate that, right? But when you get a DUI defendant, typically they have jobs and what have you, and they feel like they're not really doing anything wrong. It's really, I've had those conversations with people, as strange as it might sound. They don't feel like they're really doing anything wrong, and it's really sickening. And ultimately, what Susan said is spot on accurate. I mean, if paralyzing your friend doesn't correct your behavior, I don't know what will. So when you have that second incident, and again, as you mentioned, Julie, probably more that were unapprehended. This should be met with serious consequences in terms of prison time, perhaps, but also being a first-time DUI, which probably wouldn't come with that. But also, given the nature of the prior crime, perhaps driving isn't a right; it's a privilege, and this is somebody who should probably not have a driver's license moving forward for the rest of his life.
That's an excellent point, Kirk. Excellent point. Marcia, can I pick your brain, please, about legally how this may look to the court? Because unpacking it here, if that reckless was all that was on his record at 17, this might look to the court like a first-time offense. So what can prosecutors potentially do if they want to make sure that he curtails his behavior going forward?
Well, what they would have to do is add additional charges because DUI is a misdemeanor, so the maximum penalty he's facing is 12 months. And if they add additional charges such as reckless driving or reckless conduct, or you got to pile it on as it pertains to the number of misdemeanors if you're trying to get him custody time. The concerns that I have about his case, though, is I've researched it and I couldn't find anything that connected alcohol to the prior case. It seems like he was a teenager that was drag racing. I also have concerns about the stop because what he failed to do in this situation was he failed to move over. So the officers were investigating another accident and he failed to move over. If alcohol is involved, I am definitely outraged by that. But if a prosecutor actually wants to send a message to this young man based on what they believe is reckless conduct or what they can prove is a reckless disregard for human life, then you got to pile on the misdemeanors on him.
Palamon, I like what you're saying there, Marcia Minot. Thank you so much. Marcia's going to stay with us for our Tipping the Scales segment. We have to say goodbye, and a big thank you to Kirk Nurmi and Susan Constantine for their expertise. We'll see you both back here very soon on opening statements, I'm sure. Thank you so much. And when we come back, we're bringing in our experts as we're breaking down the crisis of teachers sleeping with their students. So what are the warning signs, and can we prevent this? We'll talk about it next. And we're getting you ready for opening statements in the YSL RICO trial involving Grammy award-winning rapper Young Thug.
Alec Murdaugh, convicted double murderer, just accepted a plea deal from prosecutors.
How do you plead?
I plead guilty, Your Honor.
He stole the money from Tony Satterfield.
Over $1 million of his own client's settlements.
Why did you agree to that?
Because I trusted him.
This unbelievable fall from grace.
I was selfish, and I just took the money.
The Murdaugh Stolen Million sentencing. Live coverage Tuesday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.